This episode of Now This Is Lit is brought to you by Audible. Check the link in the description to get your first Star Wars audiobook free. Everyone loves free things. Click that link. Do it. This show is also brought to you by our patrons. If you want to support the show in a different way, with just $1 a month, you can join our Patreon at patreon.com/StarWarsLitPod. You can get a sticker. You can get access to an exclusive show that we do every month that's wild and chaotic and fun and something you can only get by becoming a member of the Patreon. There'll be so many more perks very, very soon. But for now, do you want a sticker? Do you want a sticker that has a Now This Is Lit logo? Because it's fantastic and I love them. But I also want to give them away because there's just a stack of stickers on my desk. So if you want one, $1 a month. Patreon.com/StarWarsLitPod. A long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. You're listening to Now This Is Lit, a podcast about Star Wars books, the people who make them, and the readers who just can't get enough of them. I'm your host, Meg Dowell. I use she, her pronouns. And for the third time, my good friend Chelsea is on the show to talk about, well, we were going to talk about Star Wars Insider, and then we ended up just talking about a lot of other things, mostly instead of that. We are going to do another episode that's about, we'll talk about it in the episode that you're about to listen to. She's going to be back, is what I'm saying. But I really hope you just enjoy this, just fun, laid back, chill session with me and Chelsea, who both love Star Wars books just as much as you do. Enjoy. There we go. Fine. That's actually like my worst fear is like, I do an entire interview and then, well, because that happened to me where like I thought, or whatever happened with my interview with the authors at Celebration where it just like didn't record, and I was like, that could have been it. That could have been my moment. I think about that and it still hurts me. Like
it always, and obviously this is definitely not a bad thing, but it's funny that we were like talking about interviews just now, because in class this week I was doing my little lecture on interviewing with my students, and like best practices for interviews and like how to record and take notes and stuff like that. And I always try to give them examples of like when I mess up with interviews or technology or stuff. I was like, guys, record in like multiple places or take your notes, double check things, like test your stuff ahead of time, because technology will fail you. I promise you that it will fail you. It has failed me before. And I'm like, also you're going to fail a few times. You're going to mess up and it's going to be okay. We're going to learn from it. And yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure. I think Kevin Scott is cursed for me, because he was at that interview where it didn't record, and then this summer I got to interview him again for was that when they were doing the San Diego stuff, all the new announcements, and I got on this because it was through Disney, I think, and I got on the Zoom call. And I was like, okay, I have permission to record. And she's like, yeah. But she couldn't give me access to record on Zoom. She didn't know how to do it. And so I very quickly had to like remember how to record just a conversation on my computer. And I hit the wrong button and I didn't realize it in the moment because we were all on the call. And it only recorded my side of the conversation, which is why I didn't actually like publish that interview. I just like did part of it that I wrote in my newsletter because I couldn't do it on the podcast. So I literally, after I realized I lost it, I remembered the most significant thing that he'd said and I wrote it down really quick because I was like, this is all I got.
And that's great though that you remembered that.
At some point I will interview him and I will not have technological difficulty.
Oh my gosh. It's always something. We have all this technology and inevitably something fails or just like doesn't work like it's supposed to, or is not clear.
Yeah.
I I interviewed Kristen Baver a few weeks ago, and it was through her, I don't know if it was like Zoom or Teams or something, but it was like a Lucasfilm one, so I couldn't record it on my end. And then I was like, after the interview, I didn't get any sort of like confirmation that like the interview recorded and here's your file.
Oh
So I'm like
no.
emailing back and forth. I'm like, can you let me know if this was there? Like I need I need the like recording. You can just send me the audio. I mean, she was like super nice and helpful and sent it to me right away. So
Oh,
it
good,
worked
good.
out, but it was like very much like a panic moment
Oh,
of I just had a fantastic conversation with her for like over an hour, and if it didn't record, I swear.
yeah, the thing it frustrated me because this has to get recorded, and if I can't do it, then you gotta do it. And it was
I wonder if it's like a weird thing. Like I don't know if you could, if it matters if it's like a company
Mhm.
account,
Yeah.
because with when I was like talking to Kristen, it didn't even give me the option,
Hmm.
and like she couldn't, I don't think she could like give me permission. So
Yeah.
I don't know if it was like one of those things where it's like, no, this is like you can't get access to
Right,
recordings or
right.
anything like that because you're not part of the organization. And I'm like, I guess maybe that could be the thing. I could
Yeah.
see Disney being very strict about
Yeah,
that
yeah. I
stuff.
totally was like, oh, that makes sense that Disney would just not let me record on my end. I get that. But at the same
Yeah.
time, I was like, but also they should have given you access because this is
Yeah.
it was ugh. But like Michael Seglain was there, so I was trying to be like chill and
Oh
like not freak
gosh.
out. And I was
How
like, oh,
nerve-wracking.
it was great. They were all so nice. And
That's good.
I ended up having that moment where like I could tell like Kevin was a little bit distracted in the beginning. He was like a little bit stressed about like having to like travel. And I asked him like a really good question. And he just like snapped in. And he was like in,
Just
totally
locked in.
focused. And I was like, yeah, that's it. I got this.
Yes,
No one will
that's
ever hear
great.
it. It's fine. It's like, couldn't this be like an interview that didn't really matter? You know, it's like it always has to be.
I know.
Ugh, it's fine. But like you said, we learn from
Yes,
these
we
things.
learn. We continue to learn. I've been doing this for over a decade, and I learn new stuff all the time.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I remember like doing like my first interviews like in like college for like the college newspaper. And I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. I've never taken a journalism class. And they're like, you got this. You can figure it out. And I just like learned by doing because I just had
Yes.
no idea because I wasn't a journalism student. I was just doing it because it was a career option that I was exploring at the time. Um, and I was like, I don't know if I'm gonna be good at this, but like if you know like the right questions to ask in the story you want to tell, you figure it out. And I guess I did. I don't know.
That is honestly like the story of my life, my career is trial by fire.
Yeah.
Every professional, writing job, journalism job that I've had is thrown into the flames,
Yeah.
and you got to figure it out.
Oh yeah.
And I do. I mean, it's not fun at first.
Yeah.
But I look back and I'm like, I'm proud of me
Yeah.
for doing that. Even though I wish I would have had a little bit of hand holding, like just temporary.
For sure. I remember
But yeah.
my first internship was like writing for like an online magazine. And I'd never really done that. All I'd really done was like blogging. I had no like real writing experience. I mean, beyond like I could prove that I could write well enough to do it, which is why they let me do it. But so before I like started writing, I read through like dozens of their articles to like figure out like, oh, here's like the style that you're supposed to write in. And I just like copied it and like did it how they were doing it. And I was like, oh, I guess that like it's not that hard. It's it's like sometimes you have to like really honestly fake it till you make it because like if you don't know
Hmm.
what you're doing, sometimes it's too late.
I tell it to my students all the time. I was like, guys, if you want to be a good writer, a good storyteller, you have to like read. You have to read things.
Mm.
And you have to read books that are not necessarily nonfiction, read, I don't know, read fantasy books, read sci-fi books with dragons or whatever. It'll make you a better writer, or watch good storytelling on TV and movies.
Yeah.
It's gonna help you be a good storyteller. And yeah, a little bit of fake it till you make it.
Yeah.
Just yeah, act like you are that you like, I mean, you are a professional. But if you just kind of like manifest that confidence, it will get there.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Like, I'm never confident. And everyone's like, oh, you're so good at what you do. And I'm like, yeah, because like, yeah, I'm not going to tell you that I'm not, you know?
I feel like if I question myself when I'm feeling too confident.
Yeah.
And I it's a sore spot with my therapist.
Mhm.
And she's like, you not that I need to like be arrogant. I definitely don't want to be that.
Yeah.
But she's like you are good at what you do, and I think
Mhm.
you need to be less hard on yourself. I was like, we're working on it, okay?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I'm here. So I pay
Yeah.
you. I pay you to be here.
Yeah. I, in therapy, am working on celebrating my wins because I'm very bad at
Yes.
this. And
Mm-hmm.
anytime I like self promote, I feel gross. And I'm like, oh, everyone's gonna think I like myself too much because I'm promoting this thing I did. And my therapist is like, actually, like maybe you're just good at things. And you should
What? It's like,
like
what? That's crazy.
it's wild. Like, how did we get here? And that's go to therapy. It's delightful.
Yes. Honestly, I mean, it's been, I don't know, over a year now.
Mm,
And I look back and I'm at the point where I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna celebrate that. Like that
yeah.
is, romanticize your life.
Yeah.
You are the star of your own movie of your life,
Love
and you
that.
should celebrate yourself.
Yes.
Don't be like annoying about it, I guess. But honestly, like annoying is subjective. I 100% agree with you of like feeling icky when
Mhm.
I'm like talking about myself, because I'm like, okay, is this like weird? Am I being just really annoying and like braggy?
Yeah.
But no, I'm like, no, I worked hard on this and I'm excited about it and I'm gonna brag about it. So,
Yeah.
and there are people on the internet that think it's cool, and that's great.
Hmm. There's that.
Yes,
I mean, no one's gonna celebrate you if you don't celebrate you.
exactly.
Because if you keep all of your wins to yourself, then no one's even gonna know about it
Mm-hmm.
and know that you deserve all the praise, you know?
Exactly.
It could be a
It feels
small
good.
thing, you know?
Yeah.
It could be a big thing. Oh. Can you tell we go to therapy?
Yeah. This is like a nice like ease into like a conversation,
It really is. Now we're feeling relaxed.
hmm
Now we're
except for
feeling
the dog. The dog is feeling relaxed.
we love the doggos. There's always a doggo on the podcast. Either someone else has a doggo or it's mine, you know, and we
And
love
we
them.
both have very loud and attention seeking
Yes.
dogs, which is great.
You haven't pet me. You haven't petted me for 5 minutes. I'm
hmm
gonna need you to fix that.
hmm
And I'm gonna need you to make up for the time you lost.
Yeah, and I'm waiting for him to come over and just sit by the door. My husband's like running to the store, and so he's very upset about that.
No. Oh, what are we doing here? This is your third time on this show. Can you believe
Is
that?
it?
It is. We
Wow.
did first I had you on to talk about like book talk, etc.
hmm
And then you came on to do the book gifting buying
Yes, that's right.
episode. And now you're here again.
I'm excited to be here. It's been way too long
It really
since
has.
we've talked and done an episode. So
Yeah. We survived. We got through 2024 somehow. And now we're here and we can hang out and it's fine.
what a year 2024 was, right?
It, I, I don't even know what to say.
I will say that for me, I thought 2024 was better than 2023.
Oh, goodness.
But there were some definite like highs and lows.
Hmm.
Speaking of, I'm gonna bring it back to therapy again. Um, I have told my therapist that I struggle with the fact that whenever I have like a personal win,
Hmm.
or like I'm like feeling good, it feels like the rest of the world is like really bad.
Mm.
And that's honestly the theme of my 2025 so far
Oh no.
is I feel like I am on a high, like the roller coaster of life.
Hmm.
I'm up there, doing great. And then, I go on the internet and I'm like, "Oh no.
Yeah.
The rest of the world is not doing great." But
Oh,
like I'm really good, so feeling icky for bragging about myself
yeah.
when the rest of the world is not great.
I like to believe that there are some people who are looking for things to celebrate, even if they're not their
Hmm.
things. And so, like, I try to like frame it for me as like, oh, I'm, posting about this good thing that happened to me. And maybe that'll make someone feel better just knowing that not the entire world is bad, you know? I
Hmm.
don't know. Like, it's not about me, but also, like, it's hard because the world is very bad right now. And it's so easy to like just like spiral downward because of that.
Yeah.
But I'm like, this is why one of the reasons that I'm trying to get better at celebrating my wins, especially the small wins, because I'm like, there has to be something to feel good about. Otherwise, it's going to be really, really hard to keep going, you know? So
Hmm.
that's what last year taught me is like find the little things that are good because there has to be light in the darkness. There has to somehow.
Yes.
Whew.
I am holding on to the idea of joy as resistance.
Yes.
I see a lot of people talking about that.
Yes.
And that, the little celebrating the little things, um, not necessarily ignoring what's going on
Yeah.
in the
Yeah.
world or like completely tuning it out, but choosing to celebrate like your life individually, like celebrating your friends and family and their wins,
Mm-hmm.
and finding the things that bring you a lot of joy, um, and showcasing them, celebrating them, and like really like digging into that. And of course, part of that is reading as resistance. Reading books and celebrating books and celebrating authors and storytelling is very much like an act of resistance. So I, resist every day if that's the case.
And that's what we call a segue. That was
Yes.
great. No, it's true though. Reading is like so important. Like it doesn't matter really what you're reading. It's just I don't know, keeps me going.
Hmm.
And I know it's the same for you. On that note,
Yes.
um we'll start with Star Wars and then we can even go like beyond that if we want to, because why not?
Yeah.
What Star Wars have you been reading or have you read
Oh my
recently?
gosh. A lot. So I finally turned my Space Wizards book club into an actual book club. I don't know
Yes.
why it's taken me so long to do that, but
Yes.
I did that last month on Fable, the app. Um, and we read Rogue One,
Oh, yes.
which shocker, I had never read the novelization of Rogue One.
Goodness. It's real
It's
good.
yeah, it was very good. It hurt so good.
Yeah.
I think I put that in my review. Um, and then we just picked our next book. So we're reading Tarkin,
Oh,
another
yes.
Star Wars book that I haven't read yet. So doing the audiobook, enjoying it. It is very much a James Luceno book, which is fine,
Yeah.
because he's an incredible writer, and it's very like almost like military workplace drama.
Yes.
Um, so it's very interesting. And also currently reading The Mask of Fear. So that comes out in what, a couple weeks now?
Mm-hmm.
Not even. Yeah, something like that. Um, and loving it. Another like it's heavy.
Yeah.
It's heavy political. It's very political Star Wars, and it's so so good. Um, and I'm like, it's one of those reads that I'm like taking my time because it's such a slow burn
Yeah. Yeah.
and it's slower paced that it feels like every other sentence is like a heavy, like, I need to sit with this,
Yeah.
sit with this message sentence. I think people are really gonna like it. And I've actually really been enjoying the marketing push for this book.
Mm.
A lot of people have gotten their hands on review copies, whether that it was back at, what was it, New York Comic Con,
Yes.
the where they're handing out. Um, I was very lucky to have one of my mutuals, ask if I wanted his like physical ARC copy.
Mm.
So he sent it to me and I was like, oh, this is so exciting. Like I don't have, I mean, I do have like Star Wars like physical arcs, but it's really cool to have this one. So I've been reading it that way.
Nice.
Um and so I, obviously I will finish that before the release date on the 25th. And um I actually feel like I've been reading a lot of Star Wars this, since the beginning of 2025
Mm.
because of the book club, and then obviously there's a new Star Wars book coming out. And Random House Audio sent me files for Dark Lord, The
Ah,
Rise of Darth
yes.
Vader. So I read and reviewed that like end of last month. Yeah, a couple weeks ago. And that was really good. I'm like, it's
Yeah.
another like Legends book that I'm like kicking myself that I haven't read yet. I loved just like how just mad and like depressed Darth Vader is
It's
in that
great.
book.
It's great.
I'm like, this, he is so Anakin Skywalker right now. Like, I mean, he's
Yes.
Vader, but like it's like he's like trying to like shove down Anakin
Yeah.
Skywalker.
Oh, those are all really, really good books. Mask of Fear. Mask of Fear. I'm still like, I wrote my review today and I still don't know if I fully processed the book yet.
So you finished it.
I read it really fast and I'm kind of
Oh
like,
wow.
ooh, I should probably go now listen to the audiobook because they sent us those too. Um, because like I want like kind of like you said, there's like so much in it that
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, I wanna I highlighted a bunch of stuff, but I feel like I could have probably highlighted more in my little
Yeah.
uh digital review copy I got. But yeah, that book I couldn't ask him about this because reasons. But like there's so much in this book where I'm like, this is too like relevant to the exact time that
Mm-hmm.
we're in right now, and I don't know how I feel about that.
It's funny that you mentioned that because I was like scrolling TikTok as one does, and I think it was author Chloe Gong
Mhm.
posted a video about, she has a new release coming out this year. And she was like, I just want to let everybody know that when you see a book come out and the themes are a little too on the nose
Mm.
to what's happening in the real world,
Hmm.
she's like, that is entirely coincidence
Yep.
because these books are written several years, like 2 years
Yeah.
plus before. So it is kind of eerie as I'm
Yeah.
reading The Mask of Fear and highlighting these comments or like these sentences and quotes, and I'm like, this is almost a little
Yeah.
too on the nose.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm like, Alexander Freed, what do you know? Because, or what did you know whenever you wrote this book?
Yeah. And that's like the thing is like I know that he didn't
Mhm.
write this with this particular context, but also
But it really just goes to show you that Star Wars is, I mean, rooted in politics and also rooted in our real world.
Yeah.
And that is not up for debate. It just
Yeah.
is. I thought it was just kind of like darkly comedic when people were bringing up like the events of the Phantom Menace and like the Trade Federation and like because of what was happening in the news.
Yeah.
And I was like, and they're like, oh, like, George Lucas is like, see, I told you guys. I'm like, okay, well, it was
Ugh.
like 25 years ago, but yes,
Yes.
surprise, surprise, Star Wars is very political and is inspired by our own real world issues.
Yes. Oh, goodness. Um, now I'm thinking about the book. Uh, yeah.
I'm like, no, we can't really talk. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
not finished with the book,
Yeah,
but
right, right, right.
I honestly I will say, not spoilers or anything. I really appreciate the time that we're getting with Bail Organa and Mon Mothma.
Yes.
That's not a spoiler. Like the book, like they're two of the main
Yeah.
characters.
Hmm.
You have them, and then you have Saw Gerrera. But I feel like looking at all of the other Star Wars books and stories and things like that, we don't really get a lot of time with individual like politicians and
Yeah.
senators. I think a lot of them kind of take on like stereotypes of
Yeah.
politicians, which I mean, granted, are they a stereotype if it actually happens? Um, but getting into their heads has been really, really interesting. And
Yeah.
I feel like I think about them differently now, especially Bale.
Yeah.
Like I'm like hooked on his storyline here. So
Yeah. And I always wanted more of both of them. Especially after Andor when we got so much
Mhm.
good stuff with Mon, and I'm like, it's so interesting having watched that to then read this book and be like, everything makes so much sense.
Mhm.
Um,
Um, can I tell you that in the midst of me reading this book,
mhm.
I rewatched Andor because my husband hadn't finished the first season. So I'm like reading this book. We're rewatching Andor. I'm reading Rogue One for my book club. And
Oh,
then I'm listening to The Rise of Darth Vader, which all of these, I mean, Rogue One happens, like a lot later in the timeline, but it was very surreal to read The Mask of Fear along with reading The Rise of Darth Vader because they kind of happen around the same
right.
time, not exactly, but you're getting different perspectives. And I absolutely want all of the stories that are like right after Revenge of the Sith.
Yes.
I love those stories. I mean, I'm a prequel kid. I love all of the prequel movies and stories, but I'm really excited that we're digging into the atmosphere, I guess, of the galaxy in like the earliest days of the Empire and post Order 66.
I don't remember when I first said this. I think it was a while ago, but it's still true. I want like a Fakpov style book of short stories that's just Order 66.
Oh
And I
wow.
want like every story to be like from the perspective of like someone completely different, and like everyone's like finding out what's happening and how like it's affecting different parts of the galaxy and different beings and what they think of it. And because it's such an interesting like turning point in the galaxy, and I'm like, yes, we've seen Order 66 now in Star Wars arguably too many times. Just they just keep inserting it into everything, which is not the
Yeah.
worst thing. But like I think it'd be so interesting to in book form to really explore that. more. It's probably never going to happen, but I think it should.
What a cool and really heartbreaking
Yeah.
book that would be to read.
Yeah.
Um and like I was like thinking about that too, based on, me reading The Mask of Fear, and we kind of get one of those perspectives in
Yeah.
The Rise of Darth Vader. Um because there's like this group of Jedi and like the clone troopers, and like Order 66 happens, and it what I loved about the book was just like how there was just so much mass confusion and
Yeah.
mass like chaos, because they're like, what is happening?
Yeah.
Like we were literally just like in a battle over here, battling the separatists, and they're so far away from Coruscant, and then now all of a sudden like orders come down the line. And honestly, like to me, it's like so heartbreaking, because like you have, as we've seen in the many flashbacks to Order 66, the Jedi are like standing there like, what? Like they're
Yeah.
just like their final moments are just like confusion.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my gosh. Like I always think of like um Kiadi Mundi, and I'm
Yeah.
like, oh my
Yeah.
God, he's so betrayed.
Yeah. God, that montage in that movie, that's where I
Oh
cry. It's every
yeah.
time.
I can't, yeah, I'm like, I can't do it. Is it weird? It's probably not weird. Probably not alone in this. But the more Star Wars books I read, and then I go back and watch certain movies or TV shows, like I cry harder.
Yes.
Like I want to cry more.
Yes.
Like, I mean, I cried watching Rogue One for the first time, and I cry every time I watch Rogue One. Um, but the more books I read, the more just like gut-wrenching Revenge of the Sith is.
Yeah.
And then I also, you know, I didn't necessarily grow up with the original trilogy. Like that wasn't my Star Wars.
Hmm.
Obviously I watched it. Yes, of course, is the OG. Um, but I didn't have that same attachment that people do when they like that was their first Star
Yeah.
Wars.
Yeah. Yeah.
They grew, they're more Gen X. And they have that emotional attachment to it. But I remember watching Return of the Jedi in theaters when it came back. Was it last year? The 2023, something like that, a couple
Yes.
years ago. Um, and I just like, with all the knowledge in my brain of all of these stories that I've read, and even like having watched the sequel movies, and I'm sitting there like watching Return of the Jedi and like seeing like Obi-Wan and Anakin come up as like a Force ghost, and just like all of these things, and I'm like, oh my God, this is so good. This is so much. And I'm like, oh, I remember like, like now I know that Darth Vader is carrying all of this extra baggage because I read this book over here, and I know Luke is going through this. And yeah, it was what an experience.
I mean, it really is the expanded universe in that
Hmm.
you get more context for everything, and you get to know the characters more, and you just in a way understand things in a different way than like there's nothing wrong with not reading the books, but I think you
Hmm.
just look at Star Wars differently when you do.
Yes. Read the books, guys.
Do it. If
Read the
if
books.
if you're listening to this, you probably already do, but if you're listening to
Yes.
this and you don't, um, do it. We both, I
Yeah.
think, probably somewhere have lists of books you should start with, so go find one of those.
Yeah. Multiple lists. And I am always open to giving recommendations
Oh
on where to
yeah.
start. I never get tired of answering that question.
It's so interesting to like see like not just like what people's recommendations for starter books are, but like just hearing like what random people's like first Star Wars books were. And someone
Yes.
will be like, I first read Splinter of the Mind's Eye. And I'm like, what a way to begin your journey.
Mm-hmm. I think was it yesterday? I think it might have been yesterday. It was like an anniversary for Splinter of the Mind's
Yeah,
Eye,
it
I
was
think.
like it came out on February 12th, whatever year
Yeah.
that was, I think. Yeah, I did see that.
And someone was like, this is the book where we got like these different like objects or like technology or whatever. And I was like, how cool is that?
Yeah. Yeah. Reading early Star Wars books is wild because with so like little to go off of, they're just like not making things up, but at the same time, like the lore is kind of just like trying to build on itself. And it's so
Yeah.
like, so much of it is like sometimes like it's jarring how worldly it is because they'll call something like a very like earthly name, which they wouldn't do now. But because it was
Hmm.
like 1982, like that's just kind of what they did. And you're reading that and you're like, that is really, it's especially like the original trilogy novelizations were like, they don't have much to go on other than like the few Star Wars things that they have. And so um they're trying to like establish things and some of it has stuck and some of it hasn't and it's good. It's really good.
It I really appreciate the Essential Legends collection
Yes.
for really this is like my entry into the former expanded universe legends, whatever you want to call it. I've been corrected many times, but we won't talk about that.
Yeah.
uh um but there are some books and things that happen in the books where I'm like, this is so ridiculous, but I love it. Like
Yes.
they really just went there, and I can't help but respect it.
Yep.
Um, I really enjoy the uh Rogue Squadron series, and I really need to get back to like finishing it and move on to like Wraith Squadron and things like that.
Oh yeah.
I really enjoyed The Rise of Darth Vader, and I also love that they're coming out with new unabridged audiobooks
Yes.
because a lot of these didn't get audio, like the audiobook treatment. Or if they did, they were like the abridged
Yeah,
ones.
yeah.
Um, and of course, like Mark Thompson does a fantastic job with all of them.
Yes.
Uh, and I mean, through the audiobooks, through these like reprints, it's really like, catching me as like a newer fan to the legend stories.
Hmm.
And I hope that's like happening for other people too. It's like, you can still like, these are still worthy, like literally legendary Star
Yeah.
Wars stories, and they're great. Um, and I saw that you have been reading New Jedi Order. Did you
I
finish?
did finish it.
Oh my gosh, that's like
Um,
19
it was
books.
19 books. Further, when did I start? It wasn't last year, was it? No, I think I started at the very end of 2023.
Okay.
Um, and it took until like last month, so January, to get to the last one. And like talk about like going there and wild things happening.
Mm-hmm.
It's too many books. Like I know they weren't designed to all be read at once. That's the thing is like you can only read one at a time and then you're like I need a break. Um but the thing about the New Jedi Order is I love it. I love like understanding um more about these characters because I've read other Legends books, like further down in the timeline or before and I'm like I don't fully understand like all the journeys of these characters.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I appreciated that. I appreciated like the foundations that it sets for like books that came after. Um, but it was also like some of these books are really, really long and there's a lot happening and there's a lot of like it's very um heavily sci-fi, which I don't
Mm.
mind, but it became a lot. So I had to like read a couple and then like take a break and read some not Star Wars things and then
Yeah.
come back to it because like they're so well written. But then because it's 19 books, you have like trilogies within the series and it's like
Oh wow.
it it's a lot. And I'm not gonna say don't read it because like definitely it's like one of those like foundational Star Wars things that's very interesting, but it's also 19 books. Don't let that like stop you from reading it. But take it one book at a time. That's what I had to do 'cause Well, because
It's
some of the stuff that happens is really sad, you know? So
mhm.
it's like it's also kind of heavy at points. So
It's definitely intimidating,
yeah.
but I keep getting people like pestering me to read New Jedi Order. And I'm like, guys, like I'm at this point I'm reading like at least one Star Wars book a month, between like new releases
Yeah.
and the book club. And I think my like soft goal for this year is to finally catch up on all of the new canon books that I haven't read. And there's actually
Yeah.
not that many. I was like looking at my shelf and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I have read like 90% of these. That's crazy."
Yes.
Looking back like 5 years ago, I mean, this is really it's longer than like a 5 year journey, but like my like serious Star Wars book reading journey,
Hmm.
goes back, 5, 6 years. And I'm like, wow, I don't actually have that many books left besides the new ones that come out. So that's and then of course my goal every year is to read some more Legends books. And I'm very proud that I have one on my list for the year.
Yay.
So, what the next one will be, I don't know.
Sometimes you just gotta like go with the vibes. Like
Mm-hmm.
look at your bookshelf and be like, "Oh, maybe this one." That's what I do sometimes. I'm like, I don't know what I want to
Yeah.
read.
Right. Or it's like you're already reading 5 books, but I really want to pick up another one. And I'm like, no, finish finish a book that you're reading now and before you start a new one. And I physically can't. So,
For me, it's like there's always usually an audiobook. I have a
mhm.
book on my Kindle app and I have a physical book, and I'm usually like reading them at the same time. And I shouldn't do that, but also like sometimes you just gotta switch it up.
Yeah. I like to have a variety
Yeah.
because, I have to commute to campus twice a week
Yeah.
to teach. So obviously I want an audiobook and I need to have like a certain type of audiobook.
Right.
And then, when I'm at home, if I'm like doing the dishes, like I obviously have, have an audiobook while I'm doing the dishes or cooking dinner.
Yeah.
And then I have my physical book and obviously a Kindle. Like I have to, because what if I'm just like not in the mood to be reading a like slow burn political thriller?
There you
What
go.
if I want just a fluffy happily ever after romance? Like I have options.
Yeah. Always gotta have that romance in there.
Hmm. And tomorrow's Valentine's Day.
Oh, it is. It is.
I mean, I'm sure you're not going to post this like very quickly, but
No.
tomorrow is
I'll
Valentine's
post
Day.
it
It is,
tomorrow. I won't.
yeah.
Uh, um, there are many good Star Wars books that also have romance in them.
Yes.
For
I
the
want
record.
more.
Me too. I mean, yeah, I was like thinking of like all the rest of the books that are coming out this year that we know about, and I'm like, is there romance in any of these? And I'm like, a little, maybe. The High Republic's
Maybe in
got
the
some
higher, yeah.
things to wrap up, but I'm not ready.
I'm nervous. I'm so
I'm
nervous.
not ready. And like because part of me wants to be like, they wouldn't like kill off everyone that we love. And I'm like, yes, they would. Yes, they would.
Yeah. And I talked to Charles Soule last week
Oh
uh
no.
for Star Wars Insider. And obviously like I mean he's like done with the book.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I'm like, obviously I don't want you to spoil it because you literally cannot spoil it, but also I don't want you to spoil it for me.
Uh-huh.
But I'm like, what can we expect? And like the things that he said, it was definitely not any sort of detail, no hints, nothing.
Oh.
But I'm like, Charles, you're making me nervous.
Yeah.
Like, you're making me nervous.
Oh no.
But I think he is really he's proud of it and excited.
I'm
And
good.
honestly, like the conversation was just so like it was like surreal. And I even like got like a tad emotional at the end because I'm like
Oh.
fully hitting me of like, oh my gosh, like I'm talking to him. He started the High Republic and he's ending the High Republic
Oh.
and it's ending. And I'm like telling him, rambling about how much the High Republic means to me and like how I wouldn't be where I am without the High Republic and all this other stuff. And he's like, oh my God, thank you. And I'm like, no,
Oh.
thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I really hope that all these authors know that like the work that they've done has not been nothing. You
Mm-hmm.
know, it's within the Star Wars community, it's like brought people to reading books through the High Republic, and it's, all of course, plenty of other things. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, it was my goal at one point to try to have talked to all of them before it ends. But there are a lot of them, and I don't know if that's actually going to happen.
Yeah.
But
I was even thinking that I'm like, okay, besides Charles, I talked to Zoraida Cordova and Lydia Kang,
mm,
but I don't think I've talked to anybody else. But that's about to be fixed. So
yay.
all in one go. So that's exciting but intimidating. I I honestly like want to just have like a conversation with Tessa Grattan, just me and them,
Yeah.
and just to tell them how much Temptation of the Force meant to me
Oh.
because it was everything.
Yeah.
Like I can't pick like my favorite Star Wars book, but it's definitely tied for first place because I love that book so much.
It is so good. I also wish I had time to reread all the High Republic before it ended.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think anyone has time for that, but I wish.
I feel like it's gonna end. I'm gonna be like, all right, time to go back to Light of the Jedi.
Oh God.
Part of
I
me like doesn't like it obviously this is not going to happen,
uh-huh.
but because of how good Temptation of the Force was, and
Mm.
honestly how good Tears of the Nameless was too, I'm like, I'm good. I don't need any more books. Like we can just stop here. Like we're ending on a high.
Yeah.
So like yeah, you can just say they lived happily ever after.
I can't like it's these books have been coming out for so long and it's like I'm in complete denial that it's going to be over. Like we have a little
Yeah.
ways to go yet and more of those books will be coming out. Oh, it's not until April. I keep thinking it's March, but it's the very first of April,
Yeah.
which is fine. I guess I'll wait. Um, but like I don't think it's gonna hit me until I like read that last page that is actually over. Um,
I don't think it's gonna hit me until like be like, okay, well, what do you mean? Like we usually have another High Republic book by now. It's like, no, we
no.
don't.
I really hope that they do some kind of other like initiative like this. Like not like the High Republic, like in like, you know, subject matter or whatever, but like this whole like larger like series where like there's always another book to look forward to and it lasts
Mhm.
years. Like I hope they do that again because like yeah, it's a lot of work, but look how well it went this time,
Yeah.
you know?
I think and I hope they do too. I do worry that almost like the High Republic is, like lightning in a bottle,
Mm,
and like it happened at like just the perfect time,
yeah.
and they were able to really explore this era without having to really worry too much about what came later.
Mm,
And I'm curious of like if they were to do something like this again, you know, would it be too difficult to do this type of storytelling like far, far in the future?
yeah.
Because you then have the weight of everything that came before,
Mm, yeah.
doing something even farther back. Um, I know people have wanted like, the old Republic.
Hmm.
And I'm like, well, guys, if they ever do anything old Republic, like 1,000+ years before the Skywalker saga, it's not gonna be like copy paste from what
Yeah.
you grew up with, or like you've seen in like the games and books and
Hmm.
things like that. So um that would be really cool. I would love to do like a, origins of the Jedi type thing.
Yeah.
That'd be great. I think we need more like, it's weird to say that I think we need more Jedi stories, but I think the High Republic has just been so great because we get to just see Jedi being Jedi
Yeah. Yeah.
without, like we see it in the prequels, but like that's a very different Jedi Order
Yeah. Yeah.
than the High Republic. And then most of the Skywalker saga, they're like Jedi don't really exist.
Yeah.
So I would love more Jedi stories.
Yeah, me too. I mean, like my worry about them doing like anything Old Republic is that, it's just going to be constantly compared to what they did before, and like
Yeah.
you can't really like it's not the same. Like it's not. Yeah, I worry about that stuff, but like I mean, at the same time they're going to do what they're going to do, and we'll
Yeah.
we'll see what happens. Um oh um it is there a book coming out this year other than Trials of the Jedi that you're very, very excited about?
Um, I was like trying to think, I'm like, what books are coming out this year? I got super excited for the Bad Batch novel.
Oh yeah, me too.
I t- I'm like pleasantly surprised
Yeah.
because there was those little like hints that we're getting a Bad Batch book, based on like a listing with like no information. And
Mhm.
I'm like, okay, like I can't wait for this to be like
Yeah,
confirmed,
yeah, yeah.
announced, whatever it's going to be. And I am really excited to read that book. Obviously, The Mask of Fear is, tied with like Trials of the Jedi for like my most anticipated like Star Wars
Mhm.
releases. And I'm honestly really excited for other books that they haven't announced yet
Yes.
because I'm like, okay, it's middle of February. And when is Star Wars Celebration? Is it next month? April?
April, I think.
May? Yeah, something like that. Um, so I'm like, okay, there's gotta be some like juicy new Star Wars books they're gonna
Yeah.
announce at Star Wars Celebration. And I'm really excited for it because, for the past, what, 5 years, 4 or 5 years, we have known that when new Star Wars books are going to be announced, there's probably going to be a High Republic book. And now
Yeah.
we don't have that. So, and I'm like, we already, obviously, the Reign of the Empire trilogy has already been announced. That's done. We know that we have two Acolyte books coming out this summer. And then the Bad Batch book is in like May. Yeah, I think it's like May. But I think beyond that, I'm like, what where are we going next?
Yeah.
Like what part of the timeline? Because it could be anything. Um, based on, what they've released over the years that's not High Republic related. It doesn't necessarily follow like a specific pattern.
Yeah.
It's not like, oh, like because the Ahsoka show is airing, we have these books coming out. Like it doesn't
Right.
follow that at
Right, right,
all. So
right.
I'm like, it could literally be anything. And I'm really excited for it.
I'm interested in what Disney Books is going to do
Yeah.
because most of the Star Wars books that they've released over the last couple years have been High Republic.
Hmm.
So I'm really wondering, like, are we going to get the same number of books from them, but like, obviously not High Republic, or is it going to be just less? Because like the only ones I can think of that have come out over the past few years are the Hunter's book and Crimson Climb. Is that it?
When did Padawan come out?
Oh,
Was that 2022, I think?
maybe. Yeah, there
I'm
have
like
not.
looking on my shelf because I'm like, wait, okay, yeah, the High Republic, young adult, middle grade. We did have Queen's Hope come out. Uh, was that 2021?
Maybe.
2022?
It's so hard to remember.
Yeah. And then yeah, like we had Crimson Climb, and then yeah, I mean that's pretty much it. Those two, Padawan and Crimson Climb, are like kind of the newer young adult books that are not High Republic
Yeah.
related. So yeah, I am really curious about that too, if we're gonna get more um young adult and even like middle grade books, because I
Yeah.
feel like the High Republic has been the era where we're getting like the best middle grade books.
Yeah, for
Um
sure.
yeah. So I I can't wait till they drop the like panel information for Star Wars Celebration,
I
because I'll be
know.
like, all right, where's that Lucasfilm Publishing panel?
That's what
I
you
will
always
be
gotta look for.
I will be sad for that one.
Oh, yeah. See, it's yeah, I feel like they're holding a lot of announcements for Celebration, and that's
Mhm.
great, but also I'm like, but we have that's April. Like,
Yeah. And I mean, I guess I can understand wanting to like really hype up the Mask of
yeah,
Fear,
yeah, yeah.
which that I mean they're doing a really good job, kind of getting the word out. People have been talking about this book for months,
Yeah.
and it still has like what 2 more weeks or whatever to come out.
Hmm.
And um and then the end of the High Republic, which I can appreciate them really giving space to like those
Oh
books.
yeah.
Um but yeah, like once, because I'm like, Trials of the Jedi comes out in June,
Yeah.
right?
Hmm.
Yeah, in June. So by the time Celebration is there, I wonder if we'll have review copies by Celebration.
Maybe they've been doing a pretty good job of sending them relatively early
Yeah,
lately.
yeah,
We might. Oh, that it's gonna be really hard as reviewers to read that book and then not be able to say anything. Like we'll have to like scream amongst ourselves. Um,
yeah. I hope they still do review copies. I really hope they don't like do we're not gonna
uh,
give people review copies.
yeah, I would not like that. I would understand,
Yeah, I totally
but
understand, but I wouldn't like it.
listen, as long as I get to talk to Charles Soule, it's whatever.
Yeah. I
Uh,
already put in my request at Disney Books for um Into the Light and A Valiant Vow. I was like, I
yeah.
did it like last week. I was like, hey, I know it's like 2 months out, but I just want to make sure that
Yeah.
this request is
Yeah.
in there. Uh
Yeah, I also did that because I was like, I have a bad habit of waiting too long to do that because I
mhm.
forget that we have to actually actively do that.
Yeah.
They don't just send them. They used to. They used to just show up and now they don't do that anymore.
Yeah.
It's fine. Um,
What a journey working with different publishers
uh,
and publicists, and
it's
they all do things differently, and you have to like remember
yeah.
how they do things.
Yeah, I think it was like at some point last year I was working with like four different publicists for different book related interviews. And it was so interesting to be like, oh, like this is how they do it here, but over here they're doing this.
Hmm.
Um, because I'm so used to, because um uh Random House does it a very certain way, and I've been working with them the longest, I think.
Yeah.
But not everyone is like that. And then you go over to Insider and you're like, oh, this is just a completely different game that we're playing here.
Yes.
I was so overwhelmed the first time. I was like, "Oh, wait, you're just leaving most of this up to me. All right, cool."
Yeah, it was definitely a like, okay, like you know, you do what you feel is good. I'm like, okay. I will do that. And then I will be like, if there's any issue, just please let me know.
Yeah. Like,
But
um,
it feels good now.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
I definitely feel so much more comfortable now and feel good about like my I don't know, like my realm of expertise when it comes to like the High Republic and the books and stuff.
yeah.
So I like I now have an editor asking me to like do stuff that's like for the High Republic. He's like, you know more than me. And I'm like, okay, great. Like, sure, I will, yes, I will do the High Republic things that you need me to do.
There you go. Yeah, I really need to pitch more things because I did the one, and last year was so last year that I was like I can't do extra things. It's too much.
Yeah.
Um, but I had emailed with him like toward the end of last year, and he's like, "Oh, I have some things in the works. I'll let you know. But if you don't hear from me for a while, ping me." And I haven't yet. And I'm like, "Well." It really felt like for me doing my very first like assignment for them, it felt like they were trusting me too much almost. And I was like, do you really think that like and then I thought about it and I was like, oh, like the reason they responded is because they think I can do it. And I'm like,
Yeah.
all right, fine, I guess.
It is, yeah, it is like a weird feeling, um, being like tasked with something or, you know, like getting your like pitch accepted
Yeah.
and they're like and you know, being connected with various peoples and just really having that like resource of like, hey, is this okay, you know,
Yeah.
to write it like this or to like I want to talk to this person, like, you know, what can I ask them or like what can't I ask them?
Right.
um but and honestly it's really just been of the last like couple of years been like a fantastic experience writing for Star Wars Insider. uh just I don't know, like there's times I'm like, oh no, this is like, you know, I forget how like I don't know, like serious it is. Um it's because it's fun. It's just
Yeah.
so fun.
Yeah.
And you know, I'll be on calls with like authors and we're just like chatting
Yeah.
and I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, I actually do have to ask you questions
Yeah.
though. Like, and like everybody's so just nice.
Yeah.
I haven't like interviewed one person who hasn't been just like so honestly just excited to talk about the thing that they did.
Yeah.
Um and yeah, and then I get reminded when I get like emails. They're like, "Oh, yeah, like okay, this is going off to Lucasfilm." I'm like who? Is someone's reading this? Like, do they like it? Or
Did I do a good job?
yeah, like can I get like a star, a star sticker?
Actually, just pay me. It's fine.
Yeah, like that's sufficient. Thank you for that. You know, or getting like the little in your like bank account
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
like Titan comic. I'm like, oh, cool. Look at
Yay.
that.
I'm a real journalist.
Yeah. Like, oh, I'm like writing for this like the comics, you know.
It's a wild experience. I mean, really, not that I know this part, but like whether you've done it once or like multiple times, it's like it's still cool. It never stops being
It's
cool.
cool every time. Yeah.
Um, yeah, I mean that really is the thing that I love most about getting to talk to authors. Like they're all just like so happy to
Hmm.
be writing Star Wars. And I'm like, you can't fake that kind of enthusiasm. Like you genuinely are so glad that you got to do this thing. And that brings me so much joy. And I want to talk to as many of them as possible because it's different in that everyone has, you know, their own experiences and whatever, but like the common thread running through is like, I got to write a Star Wars. That's cool. Let's talk about that. And I love it.
Yes. Every single author that I have interviewed has said like a variation of that statement
Yeah.
of and they get like giddy
Yeah.
talking about their like journey to
Yeah.
being asked to write a Star Wars book, or joining the High Republic team or whatever. And they're just like, I'm just happy to be here. And I'm like, okay, but me too, though.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm sitting here. I am happy to be here with you. And I'm happy to be here, like writing for Star Wars Insider.
Yeah.
So, like, it's so fun to talk to fellow writers, and I feel
Yeah.
like this is just
Yeah.
like
Yeah. Yeah.
a theme among writers, whether you write fiction novels or you're a journalist or poetry or whatever. Like there just comes a time where you're just like happy to be invited somewhere,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
happy to be asked to participate in something that like you are so passionate about,
Yeah.
and still feeling like it doesn't matter like how like big of a deal like your project is,
Yeah.
you're still just like so humble about it, of like, I'm honestly, I would do it for free, like
Yeah. Yeah.
obviously we shouldn't say that as writers, but like we're just like we just are really passionate about Star Wars or about this topic or something, and want to be a part of it. You want to be part of the
Yeah.
conversation, you want to have your work recognized and read by a lot of people. um and I love that that's the theme among writers. It is, it
Yes.
doesn't matter like what Star Wars author that I've talked to. Like there's been a couple that I was like really intimidated
Mm.
to talk to because I love their books so much, like Christy Golden.
Oh.
And I'm like, oh my gosh, okay, like she wrote Dark Disciple and I'm gonna lose it. And so, but like that whole conversation was just so fun.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I know that I have to ask you about Inferno Squad, but I really have to tell you about how I feel about Dark Disciple. And again, like she's been doing, Star Wars novels. She's been doing, she had done Star Trek. She had all these other IPs, had done novels. And every time she's just like, I can't believe like I get to do this. So
We have gotten to almost no questions that I wrote that I
what do you
wrote
mean
down on
we
my
we
own.
went over some questions
Um,
like High Republic?
we yeah, we got to some things. But
We
what
segued.
we did, what I really wanted out of this conversation though, was to just talk to someone else who I like, who gets to not only read Star Wars books, but write about them and talk to the creators about them. And it's just fun to because a lot of times, like when I'm interacting with people like on TikTok or Instagram or wherever, and they're like, "Oh, that's cool that you got to read this book," and I was like, "Yeah, but like we can't like talk about it more than that. Like you don't have the
Yeah.
same experience." And like it's fun to talk to other readers when they've read the book, but I'm like, but there's this whole other level that we're so lucky to be able to be on, which is we get more of a behind the scenes look at like how all of these things come together. And I think it's just really fun to get to sit down and talk about that sometimes.
Yeah.
It's good. Um, we would be here for 3 hours if we just kept talking because that's
Of
just
who we are.
of who we are, and we just like our brains are very much in sync, and that's just how it goes. But I will not keep you that long because I like you and I would not do that to you.
Thank
But
you.
but I will say that at some point you do have to come back so we can actually talk more about Insider and you having things in books and which is why I invited you here in the first place. But listen, it's fine. It
I
doesn't
mean, we
matter.
can talk about them if you want. I'm fine, unless you have to go.
I'm gonna leave it so that you have to come back again for a fourth
Oh,
time.
okay. Okay.
Because that's I guess that's how we do things here. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Maybe we can have an entire separate, like, writing about Star Wars
Yes.
episode, which is like insider. We can talk about our newsletters, any sort of like bloggy stuff.
Look
Yeah.
at that. Just brainstorming live. We like that. No, we're definitely going to do that. Because I think like, I talk a lot about Star Wars books and I get to talk to authors and um, things like that. But like, there's this whole other, side of things where there are also people writing about them
Hmm.
and, building communities around them. And we talked about that a little bit with like more like the social media side of it. But I think it would be really interesting to talk about more of like the writing, research, that part of it. So yeah, let's do that.
Yeah, like
And
what goes into
yes.
the writing part besides just reading and writing your opinions down.
Yes. And we won't wait like a year to do that. We'll do it sooner than that because
Yes.
it matters to me. Um, Especially because the social media landscape keeps very rapidly changing and
Hmm.
who are we going to be mad at by the time this episode comes out? I don't know. For the time being, if people want to find you and your things on the internet, where are you?
Where am I, honestly? It's honestly it's changed. I'm hoping it doesn't change in the next, I don't know, month or so,
Uh,
but um I am at Space Wizards Book Club on Instagram, Threads, and TikTok. And my newsletter is on Substack. That is roughly a weekly newsletter, though sometimes I forget. But I've been pretty good about it.
Good.
So I that's where I am like sharing, Star Wars book news and reviews and all that fun stuff. Where else am I? Mm, oh, I'm on Fable as well. Like I have Space Wizards Book Club, like an actual book club. So if you want to come read
Yes.
Star Wars books with me and the like 100 other people that are in there,
Yay.
it's a fun time. I actually really enjoy like reading the books along with other people and getting their perspectives as we go. Um, and then of course you can find me in the pages of Star Wars Insider. I have articles coming up in the next 2 issues.
Wow.
So, and that comes out like it's like end of March and then like middle of April, something like that.
Nice.
So, lots of stuff going on.
You're doing great.
Thanks.
And of course, you will be back because I want you to be.
I can't wait. Pencil me in.
Now This Is Lit is part of the Faraway Fandom Network. It is produced by Devor Montum and written, hosted, and edited by me. Jose Jimenez designed our podcast art. You can keep up with the show on Substack and Now This Is Lit, and find the show wherever you get your podcasts. There are so many ways you can support the show, and all of those ways are linked in the show description. The newest way is to become a member of our Patreon. For $1 a month, you can get access to an exclusive show and a sticker. And if we get 500 people to support the Patreon per month, I can hire an editor. That would be great for me, and maybe for you too. So if you'd like to support the show with just $1 a month, you can do it that way. Or you can just keep listening and sharing the episodes. That is also helpful, and I appreciate it. For more book reviews and Star Wars Book Celebration, follow Star Wars Book Reviews on Instagram and TikTok.